Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 15th of August 2025. The first chart is the S&P ASX 200 index. This is the parent index for the Australian Stock Exchange, and it has moved higher over the last 2 weeks. The volume increased to about average this week, so it's genuine trading. We have the old highs of the range through here after we saw strong buying support emerge down here on this bar, and price broke out, continued pushing higher. More recently, the market broke out above the highs of the range. This was a really important level. Spent 2 weeks in consolidation mode, and now we've been up in 2 weeks, effectively confirming the breakout. This is a strong move, and if it proves successful, and it's looking like it will be, then I would expect some sort of positive influence in the market to become established and the market to begin trending higher. This is the mid-cap sector. The mid-cap sector is comprised of the bottom 50 stocks in the ASX 100 index. And similarly, if I mark a similar level, here's the highs of the old range. This was the important level. This market broke out a little earlier than the parent index. You can see that a similar 2-week period of consolidation took place there, and now this market has also pushed higher over the last 2 weeks. Volume increased considerably this week, but spread narrowed, which does suggest that some supply was being drawn out in the market, and that may see price at some point come back and test the old breakout line for strength. This market's been leading more recently, so the indications from this sector have actually been a really important guide to the overall market, perhaps a slightly better guide than the parent index over the last few weeks. This is the small ordinary sector, and it's comprised of the bottom 200 stocks in the ASX 300 index. And here's the old highs of the range through here. This market broke out a little later than the others. It did, however, break out all the same. This was the important level. This was the initial breakout, and prices also pushed higher over the last 2 weeks. Now, spreads narrowed similarly this week, but volume has reduced, so the market's almost floated higher this week. That gives you some mixed signals over the 3 large charts we just looked at. We've got average volume here, narrowing spread, higher volume here, narrowing spread, and reduced volume here, narrowing spread. So we'll just keep an eye on this and see how it develops over the next few weeks. The mid-caps have been the best guide more recently, and they would suggest the market may be drawing out a little supply. The price may come back somewhat, just to test the strength of the breakout and see how much supply is actually drawn out. This is the ASX financial sector, clearly the largest sector by quite some way in the ASX stock exchange. You can see there's the highs of the range. This market broke out early, pushed higher, had a bit of an unsupported push higher here, and some supply was drawn out. The market attempted to consolidate over the 3 weeks here before price came back, tested the strength of the breakout. Then over the last 3 weeks, the market's really been in consolidation mode, but within the range of this down bar, which had the higher volume. So we'll just watch this market. I don't think it's going to break down. I think it's trying to consolidate within the range of that down bar, which is testing the initial breakout for strength. And it's not actually finding great strength, to be honest, but it is holding on. Price is edging higher. A push above this level would see the market change its shape somewhat and perhaps begin to break out. So we'll just keep an eye on that and just see how it develops. This is the ASX metals and mining sector. And for a while, it was under a bit of pressure. This was the level we were watching initially for a breakout. We saw price breakout on this bar here and drew out supply. Price came back. It's tested the breakout line for strength. Then over the last 2 weeks, it's pushed higher in response. It was a bit of a complex level, which was why the market had to spend some time in consolidation mode through here. You've got this level here and through there, the highs of the range through there. So you can see the market had to work its way through there and negotiate a path through the resistance, which it appears to have done this week. Now, don't be surprised if you see price come back a little bit in response and just go into consolidation mode here before there's a really serious breakout. You would normally expect to see a little period of consolidation in response after price has worked its way up through some levels of resistance like that. And it'll just pull back, it'll consolidate, it'll absorb any supply that's drawn out, or at least attempt to. And then if successful, it'll push higher again in response. This is the ASX gold sector, which was also under a bit of pressure for a while. We had last gasp lows here, and the next level highs coming through here. Price threatened to break down to that level, but then reversed, and this week it's moved higher again, following some testing for supply in there. The volume was reduced, so price has really just floated high here, and it's closed at this level here, where the market found a little support before breaking down and coming down to the lows of the range. So the market's pushed up to this level. You may find this market also comes back and consolidates for a couple of weeks, just depending on what the overall market's doing and the price of gold in particular for this chart. But if the price of gold continues sideways, you may see this market just come back a little and consolidate over a week or two around this 12,000 level. And then if it's successful, you may see a more significant push higher, or at least an attempt to push higher. The ASX energy sector has stalled a little bit over the last few weeks. It did garner quite good support down here. We noted that at the time. And then price pushed higher over a period. This is the level the market's at the moment, with another level just above that. Sort of reminds me of this little position here, to be honest. Very similar. The market's moved up to this level and it's spending a little bit of time absorbing supply and working its way through, with the next level so close above, forming almost a single complex level here. The market's almost been absorbing its way through, at least for the last few weeks, and it's not going to thrust higher in one move. It's going to move through slowly with relatively small and narrow spreads. You can see the spread narrowed this week quite a bit and volume reduced to below the average. So the market's just creeping through gently at this point. The ASX healthcare sector has also got supply being drawn out to the left. Here's the highs of the old range across here. And you've got the market pushing up adjacent to this large period of congestion to the left, which is always likely to have some supply within it the market will need to absorb. We only saw modest support initially emerge, but then the market went through quite a period of consolidation through here. This was like an accumulation period in there. Then the market's accelerated out and up to the important level where it's spending some time now absorbing supply, or at least attempting to absorb the supply being drawn out from the left before there's a push up to the highs of the range, where you would normally expect to see a little bit of consolidation right up at the highs of the range, and then possibly an attempt to break out if the period of consolidation is successful. So what we're seeing is the initial consolidation as price pushes up to trade adjacent to this congestion to the left, which will contain some stale supply. We can see that being drawn out at the moment, although the low volume suggests that it's not significant. That should allow the market to push up to the highs of the range at some point, and it may be on its way to do so following this week's gains. The ASX industrial sector, which drew out some supply more recently. We noted it at the time here, this increase in volume to well above the average. Price pulled back in response. Went through a period of consolidation sideways. Pushed up to the highs of the range again on this bar. It's moved back within that bar's range with a narrower spread and reduced volume. This was the market in consolidation mode, and now it's absorbing its way higher, like this. It's always a bit tentative for the market when there's supply drawn out like this. The market almost has to regain confidence again. And this market's pushed back up to the range, and it's spent the last month pretty much trading sideways or adjacent to this bar's high. At some point, the confidence will be regained, trading conditions will become favourable, and the market will attempt to push higher with a bit more intent. Either that or it'll break down, but I don't think it's going to break down. It's looking stronger than weaker. So I expect this market will attempt to push higher and show some vigour at some point in the future. You'll note that the volume increased this week as price pushed slightly higher. This may have been the market just pushing above these important highs. It's not a successful push above at the moment, but there is some intent there, I guess. This is the consumer staples sector, and the market did show a little bit of a reversal over the last couple of weeks, although the close off the highs each week did suggest that supply was being drawn out. The response this week suggests that the market had been absorbing the supply as it's been drawn out through here, and prices pushed above this important level, and it's now trading adjacent to this little bit of consolidation to the left. I don't expect that will hold too many dangers for the market, and there may be an attempt to push higher again in response. I do note that the market did close slightly off its highs again this week, so that probably reflects that there is some supply being drawn out to the left. And you've got above that the highs of the range going through there, so there's a bit of room to move. This market's not generally particularly strong when the overall market is strong, but it does get dragged higher along with the market to some extent. So don't expect this market here, the consumer staples, to be leading when the market is buoyant, but it will be dragged along to some extent as the market moves higher. The consumer discretionary, however, does move higher with a bit more intent when the market's buoyant. And this week, price has tested for supply for the week. Here was the important level where the market had to consolidate for a period before breaking out above it. This was actually more of a period of consolidation like this. The price pushed up to this level, and this week it's tested for supply right up high in that bar's range, which is always strong. The market's moved back within that bar's range, but it has closed back adjacent to its highs, actually slightly higher for the week on average volume. So it's genuine trading. This market's well placed to make an attempt to continue higher if trading conditions remain favourable. And I expect they probably will. This is the ASX property sector. The market broke out or attempted to break out last week, and after a very small test for supply early in the week, prices pushed higher. Volume increased slightly but remained below the average, which probably reflects why the spread was not particularly strong or wide. There's the highs of the range that the market had been dealing with. And you can see last week the market pushed above it, and this week you've had a secondary push, which is pretty good. That suggests this market is strong and it's happy to move higher along with the overall market. Just back to the parent index quickly before we close, and it's all pretty clear. There's the initial highs of the range. Here was the breakout, 2 weeks consolidation. Secondary push higher is underway at the moment. Volume increased to average, so it's genuine trading. It looks like this market would like to continue higher. That doesn't mean it will do so, but if the opportunity is there to move higher, I expect this market will take that opportunity and continue higher. There's a good chance that a positive influence will be established in the market now, and you may see this market begin trending higher now that it's broken above this important level. Okay, thanks for your time. Have a good weekend. I'll be back next week. See ya.